Welcome to Tournament Center. Rich Hagan here and introducing none other than Hall of Famer Mr. Zvi Mowshowitz. Great pleasure to have you here, Zvi. You'll be able to see his resume up behind us on the big screen coming up. You got this terrific deck through 4 rounds, 11 and 5, 2 players at 4 and 0. Very exciting deck. Let's go right from the start. All this acceleration. That's where you kicked off, right?
I love acceleration. I built my entire Magic career on Mana Acceleration, Grim Monoliths, Birds of Paradise, Tolarian Academies. Whatever's available, I want it. And I've been a big fan for a long time of playing Birds and Elves to try and get out there and be faster than your opponent. And Noble Hierarch really throws that into overdrive because Noble Hierarch is often a perfectly good card to have later in the game, even when you don't need the mana. So I've known, ever since the Landfall came out, and we got Lotus Cobra, I've been wanting to do Noble Hierarch, Birds of Paradise, Lotus Cobra, Knight of the Reliquary. Because these two get you here on turn 2, get you set up to do something awesome, and then these two together are ridiculous. Like if you get a fetch land, you often get the draw of first turn Noble Hierarch or Bird, second turn Lotus Cobra, fetch land, sack it, Knight of the Reliquary on the spot, turn 3, you can do pretty much anything in the game.
Now, is it fair to say that right now Knight of the Reliquary is probably the best card in Standard?
Yes, I think it's definitely the best card in Standard. It's a 3-drop that just owns the world. It gets big at +2/+2 every turn. It comes out on turn 2 often if you've got a Noble Hierarch. It accelerates your mana, and you've got this card over here.
Yeah. Now, Sejiri Steppe, common, coming out of course in the new set, and you have comes into play. Give yourself protection from something, and you can just tutor that up with the Knight. Fantastic. Now, the big question is, you start with Hierarch and Birds and Lotus Cobra. You've got all the mana in the world. So the next part of the puzzle, what do we do with it? Right,
and I've been working on this problem for a long time. I've worked on this problem before Worldwake, and I couldn't find a satisfactory answer because the problem was you couldn't find the right land count. If you played 23, 24 lands plus this mana, the problem was often Lotus Cobra didn't work because you only had 3 lands or you only had 2 lands. It didn't trigger, and then you tried to play 6-drops and 7-drops or something obscene to try and take advantage. Even 5-drops, you couldn't quite get there. It was way too easy to disrupt by killing the Hierarchs and Birds and Knights. The problem was if you played 27, 28 lands, you just didn't have enough threats. You drew these hands where you just flooded. But then I saw the spoiler, and I saw Colonnade.
Celestial Colonnade, the 4/4 guy.
Yeah, I had this deck built with a blank in here for Wildwood with some stats.
Okay.
I did not know what it was, but I knew I wanted it.
Right.
So I figured it would be at least somewhat good. It turns out to be quite good, much better than I thought it was when I first saw it. Still not as good as Colonnade. So what this does is you have 27 lands in your deck, but 7 of them are creatures. So effectively, only 20 of your lands don't help you attack and win the game. On top of that, you've got the Hierarchs, which provide Exalted. The Knights are huge, and the Lotus Cobra is a perfectly acceptable 2-drop most of the time, and allows you to play all high-end. So at this point, you now have tremendous flexibility. You have 45 mana sources in order to help get you to 5, get you to 6.
Now, this is the fun bit.
Yeah.
Finest Hour, at first, second, third blush, this is a casual card. It's fun. You just you run 5 mana out there and you go, it's Exalted, and we could do some fun stuff with it. At what point did you think this is a card that could dominate a Pro Tour?
Well, again, so once I knew the manlands were there, I knew I wanted to try this structure. I did not know what this was. I mean, I knew Baneslayer Angel was going in because Baneslayer Angel was ridiculous.
It's Baneslayer Angel.
Right.
Yeah.
And I suspected the rest of it, but so I was experimenting with Rampaging Baloths for a while because the idea on that deck was basically to go Turbo Landfall. Lots of versions of it add even more mana. They had Harrow, they had Expedition.
Yeah, County Hard Expedition.
They were just trying to go crazy, and that doesn't work because it's too variable. Sometimes it just doesn't do anything. But I knew that Baloths was a really powerful creature that can just dominate an entire game.
Yeah. And what's nice about the Baloths, of course, is because it makes 4/4s, it isn't just a 1-for-1 trade. They can't just go, we'll terminate your guy. You've already got value out of it.
A lot of decks, you play Rampaging Baloths, you play a fetch land, the game is essentially over, you've overpowered them, and it costs you almost nothing because it's a perfectly acceptable creature. So the way I got to Finest Hour was, you really want to make use of what you have in your deck. So what you have in your deck is you have your manlands built into your deck, and you have Birds and Nobles and Cobras built into your deck. Knight is just amazing on its own. So I thought to myself, okay, what do I want to do when I have a guy that's not that impressive, but he's hanging around and he's already there? How do I turn this into something good? And what I realized was, if you play Finest Hour, any guy in your deck is now a savage beating. You play Lotus Cobra on turn 2, you play Finest Hour on turn 3, Cobra is still untapped. Suddenly, you hit them for 7.
which is pretty absurd on turn 3, right?
And if you have a Noble Hierarch, you hit them for 10.
Oh, okay. Now, once you have Finest Hour, it's then just one step back on the mana curve to get this legendary bad boy over here, Rafiq of the Many.
Which also works on the same principle. If you put Rafiq out, even a Birds of Paradise attacks for 2, a Lotus Cobra now attacks for 6, and it does it right now. This deck is much more hasty than it looks. They never really know how much damage is about to come their way, and those two combine really well with the mana lands. When you put out Finest Hour, and then suddenly you're attacking with Colonnade, suddenly you can hit them for 5 and then 6. They're taking 11, and you don't have any creatures out. They may have just raft.
Yeah.
Plus, it stacks Finest Hour. You can get 2 Finest Hours out, and now you can go 5-6. Now you can go not 5-6, but now you can go 6-8-10 and kill them from 20. All at once.
Absurd. Let's take a look down in the bottom corner at the sideboard.
Right.
You've got 4 Mind Control there. Where do they come in?
Well, one of the problems of a deck like this is that you can't run removal, right?
Sure.
Lots of Bant Charm is in main deck of most decks that have this kind of configuration. The problem being you really need all of your cards other than the base to be threats. You need to be able to hang your hat on them. That's the way I think about it, is I gotta have this card be the card that deals with them, that stops them, and or kills them. And Rhox War Monk is a little bit like almost too small to play, but you can play it because it's a 6-point life swing and because it combines so very well with Finest Hour and Rafiq. Because of the lifelink, suddenly you have these tremendous swings that just completely put the game away out of nowhere, and it holds the ground so well if you need to develop slowly for whatever reason.
Sure.
Right.
No surprise to see Jace the Mind Sculptor there.
Yeah.
All sorts of people playing that. What's Admonition Angel for?
Okay. Admonition Angel is for when they don't have removal. If they can't kill creatures and they're trying to play something else big, Admonition Angel completely dominates the game. Because you put down Admonition Angel, say Aldazri Green, right? That was the specific target. They have a monument out. You play Admonition Angel, you play a land, you take the monument, and now the game is over. They play a second monument, you take that one too. Now you're going to take a bunch of big creatures as well. The mind controls, the primary matchup where you want all 4 mind controls for sure is vampires, because Blood Witch is a serious problem for this deck. We only have the 7 cards that can actually attack. Often it's only 3 that can get through it, although you can often just attack with too many creatures for him to block at the same time. Or alternatively, you can often get through with the Steep or do other similar things. But Mind Control allows you to take Nocturnus, it allows you to take Blood Witch, and either one of those is a creature they actually don't have that many great answers for. They're bigger than their other creatures. And on top, and so you bring in that, you bring in Bant Charm to help you with Nocturnus to make sure you can't come down as an instant that often. And it's also very flexible. Suddenly, the cards that actually threaten you are no longer a problem. And if they try to play the rush game, it doesn't work very well because you're so fast.
Sure. Listen, this is an absolutely terrific deck, but of course, you're not just a Hall of Fame player, you are very much a Hall of Fame writer. And right now, Zvi has published My Files. You can see it up here, there it is. So, the Dojo, Mind Ripper, the Sideboard, tell us some of the goodies that are in there. I guess the story of this event here, Pro Tour Tokyo 2001.
Yeah, I really loved Tokyo. It was sort of the very perfect work experience in the sense that I knew what I set out to do. I set out to say, I'm going to win this Pro Tour. This is my house. Nobody beats me in my house, even if it's over in Japan. And we worked really hard, and then we found that everyone was going to play the same small set of decks, basically red, green, red, black, and we figured out how to beat them. And early on in the tournament, you had people like QB running around going, that bad deck Scott John is running with 4 main deck Acolytes. What the hell is that about?
Yeah.
And without realizing that 75% of the field was playing basically red cards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I knew that deck inside and out. I knew exactly how to play every card, and it was weird that I actually developed insight into the deck during the tournament that we'd never done during testing. I was doing things I'd never done. I was naming familiars on turn 2. I just read the guy for it, or I was like, this is the only way he beats this hand. The first time I ever named green on Voice of All was the semifinals. I had never done that. I just looked at meta, thought like, you have multiple Thornscape Battle Mages in your hand, don't you?
This book here has 500 pages of great magic theory and strategy. Utterly irresistible. Maybe this deck here is the solution to San Diego 2010. Zvi Mowshowitz, Hall of Famer. Great to be here. See you very, very soon on the Tournament Center.
Yeah.